Okay, it's recording. Okay. Okay. Hi, Henry. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. How is the weather in NOLA?
It is pretty good. We got a little cold snap, but it's warming up today, so it's very I guess the word would be mercurial. It was like in the 30s yesterday morning, and now I think it's supposed to get back up to 80 today. And for the
Oh.
rest of the week, so it's very unpredictable in that way, but it's nice because it's sort of the atmosphere is always greener, So it's like I was already sick of the cold yesterday and now it's warm and I'm like, "Oh, cool." And then I'm sure I'll step outside and I'll say how it's too hot and then it'll be cold again tomorrow and.
Does it get cold at all there?
It does. It does. There is, I mean, it's more of a place that only has two seasons. I mean, we have
Mm.
like really nice weather in the spring for maybe about a month, um, where it's sort of probably closer to California weather, where it's very, or at least, in Los Angeles area. But yeah, I mean, it does get cold here in a weird way, because it's very humid, and so
Mm.
the cold kind of is like a kind of cold that really sticks to you,
Mm.
and so it's a little intense that way. But it's not so bad, You just put more clothes on, it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can already see you are, which I hope it's not too cold that you're kind of shivering. But here out here in LA, it's interesting. Yesterday was really hot, and now people are like, oh, it's going to rain, it seems, in the next 2 days. So weather is so unpredictable, and I hate how unpredictable it is. But you just roll with it, I guess.
Right. I
Uh,
mean, a tale as old as time,
Taylor's all this time.
Yeah, it's like the weather has always been sort of a core part of humanity, I think. And the space where I work, this garage is unconditioned, so it's like um my friend had a theory and she was like, "Oh, I understand now," because she had seen my workspace and I was telling her how it's unconditioned. She's like, "Oh," because she's from the South, my friend Courtney Bush, and she's like,
Mm.
"Oh, I get it now. You're sort of like manic energy in the poems is because you're like baking in the southern heat inside your garage and you're sort of letting it flow out of you."
Yes,
Um,
tell us what this space is. I see a whiteboard on the side.
yeah, oh no, a chalkboard, a
Oh,
true,
yes.
true chalkboard.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a chalkboard. Oh my God, it's
yeah.
traditional. And is that a projector on top? Or that's just.
No, that's just like my lunch bag, I think. But it's on
No, no, no,
wheels.
this one, the one that says Lift Master. Oh, that's something else, I guess.
Oh no, that's my garage door. That's the mechanism to roll up the garage. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, it's a garage. Yeah, that's all that is. But yeah, it's just like a unconditioned kind of like space. There's some laundry. There's one of
Wow.
my
Oh
dogs.
my God, doggy.
Yeah, that's Stevie.
Hi,
Um,
Stevie.
and yeah, just lots of. I think it all kind of. Uh, I mean, on the other side of like what I see every day, it's like my tools, my
Oh,
workspace.
wow.
So it's like the workshop idea that we use so much in
Mm.
writing, it's like very literal here.
It is.
And I
It
think
is.
that does sort of apply to my work too. It's very like hands-on, very tangible, whether it's
Yes.
performance based or the inclusion of different theatrical property within the poems, whether it's more of a symbol or literal. I mean, I do like to bring those to performance when I can. So it's nice when I'm performing in New Orleans because I have access to that, where it's like, it was, I was tempted to. I went on that tour not too long ago that was pretty intense, but it was like a flight every single morning for 7 days straight. Um,
Wow.
and I couldn't tote all my junk with me, 'cause it
Mm.
was just going to be too expensive with checked baggage and stuff. So I had to kind of just go raw, just, my body is the prop. And so that was a good constraint for me though. You want to balance it. You don't want to like over rely on a prop or something to sort of
Mm.
make up for some, I think that some people, I mean it's maybe could think that or something. It's like, why can't the words just speak for themselves or something like that? But
Amazing. I mean, speaking of work and giving people the context, we at Ricochet have published Joy Buzzer, which is Henry's
Yes, yes.
poetry collection,
Yeah,
and
and here's my no, this is not a slight on the book. It's so I didn't get it lost. I always write like my copy on things, and I wanted to make
yes,
I was like toting so many in my bag on the tour, to have some merch for sale and stuff that I was like, I don't want to lose my copy,
that's amazing. And I mean,
so I had
honestly, this is such a fantastic. We were choosing the book for the next year, and we were talking about your book because obviously, when the piles are read, they're distributed amongst like two teams, and then we figure it out, and yours was another team, and like they didn't like anything in their section except for your book. So
oh really?
my team didn't get to your book, so in the distribution, and then we were like, they just have one selection, we have like five from our pool, so at least one of ours will make it. And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were we were so um uh surprised. It was such a surprising um book in terms of what it wanted to do and what it
Mm,
was doing visually as well, which we found so everybody was so like mesmerized by the chances taken in the book, which I think Ricochet is very invested in. Like, we're really interested in work that people will not um will not, I mean, experimental is such a strange word sometimes because it I think it represents something that is undercooked maybe, or is
mm,
trying, but I think it's more about somebody there's somebody's taken so much of a chance that it feels almost like it's not a part of this world, it
mm.
is, it kind of really takes all the shots. And so I feel like there's so much about this book and its conception that I'm interested in talking to you about this morning. And obviously, I'd love if you read to us maybe one or two of your favorite poems, and then we can continue from there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just thinking really quickly to lift off of that idea of experimentation, which definitely is a word that gets thrown around a lot. But I think if it's truly experimental, the sort of implication is that the practitioner of the experiment is unsure of the outcome. They might have a hypothesis, but it's not so much about a preset intention. Uh, and I think that that's something that, I mean, even all the way down from like the workspace to the work itself to, as you mentioned, like the sort of like the visual poems that are peppered throughout, which, was just made very, very childlike, very like just these sort of like felt stickers
Yeah.
and construction paper and the sort of ready-made nature of the hello, my name is name tags and things like that. Um, it's like sort of there's a mosaic quality to the amount of experiments here. But yeah, I'd be happy to read. I think that I'll read from Joy Buzzer. I think that would make the most sense. And you had mentioned one or two poems, but a lot of the poems in this book, as you know, are sort of in the sort of more comic tradition of what might
Mhm.
be considered like a one-liner or something like that. And sometimes there's more stage directions or props involved. And so one of the challenges of sort of conveying the performance into a book form was the wacky idea I had that was absolutely not at all practical. But this, I don't know, there's maybe if we call each one of the poems a joy buzzer,
Mhm.
which for those that don't know is named after the gag where you slip on this mechanical device and it gives like an artificial shock when you, it's kind of like a silly, stupid gag thing you'd find at a five and dime store or something. Um, it's I always had this idea because when in performance, I hand out all these name tags and then they become this other entity for the duration of the performance. I introduce myself as the clown, whose name also is my own name, Henry. So the clown's name, Henry, hi, I'm Henry. And then they say, hi, I'm my name is Getting Old. So the name tag would say Getting Old. And you never knew who would there was no real order to it. It was always sort of this sort of chaotic energy of like you don't know what is going to happen first. So here, obviously, in the codex form, you're going to have a fixed form of the order.
Mm.
And so I think maybe what I'll do for this reading, I'll read more than two because they're so short. But I think what I'll do is
Absolutely.
I'll just flip around at random to at least somewhat mimic the performance style as if we had an audience.
Amazing.
And so it's very kind of like you never know what's going to happen next, I guess, in that sense. And I think that that is something that I really enjoy, sort of, I guess, more so identifying on the side of, I don't know, avant-garde, another term that maybe gets tossed around too much. But you never want your audience to get too far ahead of you, you know?
Mm.
And that's also going to be a good a good sort of fertile ground for laughter because laughter is always in some way or another rooted in some sort of incongruity. Um, and
Mm.
so, yeah, so in order to not let the audience get ahead of you. So
Amazing.
I'll just kind of read it as it's displayed in the book. But I think the folks at home kind of have a good enough sense. Okay. Hi, I'm Henry. Hello, my name is a poet who writes for the page and the page alone. Oh, you want to be on the team, but you don't want any game time? Hi, I'm Henry. Hi, my name is Opposite Day. I don't want yucky medicine. I want real medicine. Hi, my name is Predeterminism. Oh, so I am living my best life. I thought so. Hi, my name's the middle part of the believer slash believer Venn diagram. Y'all do realize the kingdom of heaven is probably a fairly busy urban center? Hi, I'm Henry. Hi, my name is the Northern Limelights.
Mhm.
Oh, those stars must be the really important ones. Hi, my name's Comedy on the Page. Anytime I see you in print, I think, come, die. A follow-up to that would be, hello, my name is Tragedy on the Stage. Anytime I see you, I think, tragia, die. You, you, I don't get. Hi, I'm Henry. Hi, my name is the Moon. I am so not over you. Hi, I'm Henry. Hi, my name is Ego. Well, yeah, I'm full of myself. What else would be in there? Hi, I'm Henry. Hi, my name is your greatest disappointment. I've never witnessed a miracle. I've never witnessed a miracle. I've never witnessed a miracle. Oh, wait, yes, I have. Hi, I'm Henry. Hi, my name is. Who is your audience? So that's a taste, I guess, of that book.
Amazing, amazing. There's so much in it and that I'd love to unpack, that I'd love your thoughts on, and I think it's so interesting and does so much work. Obviously the text, you know, you performed it and there's a performance to it, but the text is also performing and um to absorb the performance onto the page is so challenging because it needs to speak. I mean, all good texts do that. They speak
Mm.
to the reader and the person. But it also makes I think your poems, the book makes one aware of performance in itself. That is the act of repetition of like restating one's name, which is so fascinating to me, as in the interaction happens through identifiers and how the identifiers are constantly working and not working. And then eventually you're like, what is Henry?
Yeah.
And is he an accrued, or she, they, an accrued meaning of all the interactions that they're having with the audience. So it's just this fascinating build up, and as you said, one-liners, like how do you even um what does it mean to read a one line as a performance, which is so interesting. And obviously, like the audience is not able to, or like the people who watch this are not able to understand how interesting the graphics are in this. text. It's not just colorful, but it has get the meaning making capacity of kind of the zaniness that even the text kind of embody.
Yeah, I
So
think
yeah, go on, Henry.
I think that that's it's definitely like you said, really well put. There is this sort of accrual of or this sort of amalgamation of all these different entities, and then the through thread of that refrain, "Hi, I'm Henry." When I tell someone that's unfamiliar with the work that that's sort of the refrain, of course, on first glance, or if you're not experienced with the performance yet, it comes across as very egotistical, which I think that the book is very aware of, but when you see the performance and you hear that line over and over again, at this point in New Orleans and elsewhere, it's almost its own joke. Like when I see people I haven't seen in a while, people will say, "Hi, I'm Henry," you know? And it becomes this not only an accrual of like this sort of collective energy that we all sort of become one within the act of performing together, the sort of spectacle, spectator, audience, performer. There, it's like a very intimate and beautiful relationship, but it also becomes very deconstructionist as you say, like any sort of word that you say over and over again, it starts becoming foreign sounding or like corrupted in some sense, and so it really starts breaking apart. So like the idea of Henry, and I think that was part of the decision making process of like in the preface it mentions that the clown Henry, and so the fact that the decision, most clowns, not that clowns are super famous. I guess like Bozo is something that's in the cultural zeitgeist that people can. No one knows who Bozo the real name is. You know what's on Bozo's driver's license. You know, and so I think that by conflating the two, it sort of opens up the fact that, and this is also in a lot of clown theory, that when you start exploring your own personal clown and are sort of actually studying it and trying to perform it and create it, is that it's actually your true essence. And so it's very different, but at the same time, it's actually very genuine and true to you. But at the same time, there's that channel, and then on the other channel, it's just breaking apart, and it just starts deteriorating into, what is in a name. Why? I mean, I think at this point, not that many people really consider in our sort of whatever postmodern era, it's not like the ancients thinking that sense of self is like this centered malleable piece that's just like this rock. I think we're constantly performing left and right, switching our roles depending on our audience, whether it's your job or your family or your friends, etc. And so this was definitely investigating that.
That's so amazing. And like you mentioned clowning, and it's such a central part of this um, collection. Could you tell us more about what your background in clowning and then also how the poetics of clowning or the theater of clowning
Yeah.
has inspired this particular text? So I'm interested in your own personal hang-ups about it, as well as how that has influenced this particular text.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like the moment where I really got interested in it was watching this performance. It actually it's very I'm very shocked that it became this. I'm glad it is though. But Natalie Palamides, who is a clown performer, a really just a genius, had a Netflix special come out called Nate, a one-man show. And she's sort of gender bending and performing this sort of toxic masculinity, but there's also all these components of immersive theater, meaning that like the audience becomes a part of it. They have to play along whether they like it or not. And so I think that I saw that special and my mind was just so blown at the ability that she has to have all of these. I don't really think of emotions on a spectrum, but I don't know, more just pouring in all of these multiple emotions where you're laughing, but you're also disgusted that you're laughing and you're also wanting to cry. And I mean, there's plenty there in terms of clowning. A clown really understands the fact that comedy and tragedy are really almost the same thing in a lot of different ways. They're able to sort of like I don't know, is it a seal that could like run on a ball like while it's in the water or something? That singular, I picture that as like a singular molecule that tragedy and comedy share. And I think that the clown, or maybe the clown poet through language, is trying to sort of dance or sort of tread that ball in between those two regions of feeling or experience. And so that special really opened me up into like wanting to study it much more seriously. And so it becomes this absurd paradox of taking silliness very, very seriously. Um, and then once you start studying clown, as probably anyone's specialty, whatever their field of study is, you can't help but start seeing it everywhere. And so
Mhm.
then I started bringing in more theory. It turns out that like a lot of the poets, my sort of touchstone poets, such as I don't know, like the futurists, whether it's Italian or Russian, Mayakovsky, they all brought in circus imagery and activity and energy into their performance and their pieces and their poetry. I mean, I think also in terms of more recent scholarly work like Jack Halberstam's The Queer Art of Failure. Um, and the intro, I think, does a really great job of, I think I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but basically that stupidity is a valid form of meaning making. And so to
Absolutely.
not, right, to like not shy away from that was that really opened my eyes because I certainly don't think I'm the smartest person in the room. But I think that it being somewhat with a foot in academia, that is the value system of like your intelligence, your ability to be really smart. And it's just not me, And so understanding that I could go real low, um, as they say, like low theory, that was really appealing to me and felt really validating to see that in such sort of an academic, I think it was like Duke University Press publishes like, oh, there is something here that we can kind of make the two ends meet.
That's so interesting. Like clowning is one of those kind of transformative practices that allows you to transform something like sadness to joy or joy to sadness or like failure to success and like it kind of um it's like a turntable that allows for these kind of polarities to coexist as you were saying
And not just that, absolutely the clown is someone that understands that. But it's also I studied enough to sort of understand it as a biological fact. So like I teach clown at LSU and is a sort of performance studies and in practice we're about to start rehearsing our final clown acts tomorrow actually. But one of the sort of torturous meditations that I do is I kind of start happy, and I have all the students close their eyes and I just ask them to sort of reflect on the last time or a time that comes to memory where they really lost their shit in laughter, where when you're really just dying of laughter, you can't stop it. It's sort of in a weird way. It's like involuntary, right? Like if you're truly laughing, of course, there's different levels of it. There's polite laughter in a social setting or something like that. But when you really lose it, it becomes very animalistic. You're sort of making noises that you can't, maybe you're kind of ugly. Everyone has their own sort of laugh or something. But of course, I think it's beautiful. I mean, ugly laughs are maybe the most beautiful. So then they sort of reflect on that. They're smiling to themselves, things like that. And then I'm like, okay, but locate it in your body. Like, where does your body feel it, right? Some people say the chest, sometimes they feel it in their throat, or maybe it's in their head. You start feeling lightheaded or something. And then I go, okay, great. Now I want you to remember the time when you lost someone to death, like basically, like when perhaps a parent or a best friend died or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and then the room energy shifts.
Mhm.
And then I ask them to experience that again cerebrally, but then also to locate it in the body. And most students will attest that it's the same exact biological mechanism. You feel that grief when
Mhm.
you start, like when you're just like slobbering all over yourself crying.
Mhm.
It's the same exact thing. And that's why we can laugh so hard that we cry, or
We can.
I mean, I'll speak from my own personally. My friend, one of my best friends died, and he's in this book, John, and he has sort of some segments, and it was a big inspiration for me in terms of he wasn't a clown per se, but he taught me how to clown, if that makes sense. Um, and crying so hard that I don't know what else to do, and I start laughing, and I think that these things have forever been connected in the human experience, and that relationship. I mean, I'll study it till the end of my days. Um, and
Yeah,
I think it's really rich. It's really rich.
yeah, it's amazing. And like, like it is exciting to know not only that there is a relationship, but they are also um related closely, right? As you said, like it belongs in the same space in the body.
Yeah.
So it's not like, head and the feet. I mean, it is the same
Yeah,
body,
sure,
and
sure.
the feet are in the same body, but like they're just so closely tied. And you spoke about or like uncertainty and failure as these important tenets of thinking like a clown, or understanding clowning, maybe. But like, how do you feel about now, the subject position of being a published poet, in a sense, which is a particular kind of success, and it's come from a discussion of failure. How is it surprising to you? Is it a particular kind of dissonance, or do you think it's a part of this process that you are talking about anyways? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's I gotta kind of gather my thoughts. So you'll see time and time again, you're reading about clown, that failure is oftentimes at the center, which I do think that um to define failure in this sense, I think it means looking dumb, looking like a fool, not being able to do something basic. A clown acts are very simple. They could be trying to pour a cup of tea and everything goes wrong, and so we have the metric of success is pouring a cup of tea or brewing coffee or whatever. We're trying to get the thing brewed, we're trying to get it into the cup, we're trying to, then sup or whatever. Okay, that's the line of success. That's the expectation. And then the failure is if we can't get these things. With poetry, I think that it's a little bit different because at least having done the sort of poetry circuit of, the sort of boring rigmarole of um, submitting poems, getting rejected. All of us know this experience if we're in it. Uh, a callousness needs to be built. I feel like poetry, like probably many other arts, is a art of endurance, of just continuing to do the work, even though maybe it's not being well received or it feels very lonely. There's always the loneliness of creation to sort of maybe taper out, to go back to earlier, like the ego of creation, right? So there always has to be some sort of an ego involved in order to generate the material. I don't think ego is a dirty word. I think it's a necessary stepping stone to something bigger.
Mm.
Um, but I obviously was, over the moon. Um, Even though I said earlier in the reading, I'm so not over the moon. But the when Ricochet Editions picked this up, because it did feel pretty different. I mean, of course, I have my people in my head that I feel like this is in a lineage of a certain tradition, whether it's poets
Absolutely.
theater, or the scriptedness of it, even sort of grabbing from like stand-up comedy or one-liners, and all these other things. I could go on and on about the inspirations. The list is endless. But I think that in some ways, I don't know. I don't know if what does it mean for art to fail?
Hmm.
And so the question, I guess, becomes, can it? Because then if you're saying that if you're saying that it can fail, then it can also succeed. So
Hmm.
what do these two things mean? And really, I guess the most basic instinct is to say, well, it depends on the reception of the audience.
Hmm.
Um, and so I guess success in this way is connecting with fellow human beings in the audience or readership, and sort of growing that collectivity, that sort of humanness that then can apply itself to sort of organizing, honestly, and sort of like in terms of a body politic and moving forward in terms of like getting resources to everyone, even though we're talking about comedy and laughter and a little bit of tragedy or whatever. But if that's happening, then we're good. So it doesn't mean that, like, I've had plenty of performances bomb, right? Like meaning that the audience didn't like it or they didn't connect with it. And so that's maybe the easiest metric to say. But at the same time, some of those were the most formative performances for me personally. So then it's like, well, I'm succeeding on an individual level. I mean, there was a performance from maybe 4 years ago here when I was first exploring this and going really hard on the audience interaction and super weird experimental. I was in like a mad scientist coat with like goggles, and I had smoke machines and lighting and a ladder, and was just sort of working the crowd. And a lot of times with in terms of the poetry community, it's not your run of the mill reading where you just get to sit down, you listen, you see, you go back out, grab your, cup of wine and go about your day. So people are a little uneasy when I'm asking them to do a little something for me,
Mm.
and so it's often a tough crowd, but oftentimes if I'm in the right headspace and I'm bringing sort of like an embodied joy to it, and if you can see that I'm enjoying it, that shit is so contagious. But if I'm not in that right headspace, then it definitely comes across, you know, excuse me. Um, like if I'm tired or something like that, I watch the video back. I'll like record a lot of my performances. I'll be like, damn, I didn't realize how tired I was. Like I wasn't bringing what was needed to really convey the joy of the manuscript or other poems elsewhere too.
It's so
Um,
interesting. I find it so interesting, even somebody who is into put the performing arts, that while performance is like putting on a garb, it also has to come from a place that's real and that is very graspable to the mind. So
mhm.
it's very interesting how like um there is this element of just like perform it, just fake it, but like even for the faking to be convincing, it has to come from that kind of not tired, enthused space. And how the challenge of the artist in so many ways is to build that enthused
Right.
being that can quote unquote fake it, and which at that point isn't necessarily faking, which I
Well,
find.
then, yeah, exactly. That's the weird paradox is that the faking, we'll just say performance instead to kind of not have such a pejorative term,
Yes.
but it becomes the real. It really does become the real. And I think that what you had just mentioned, that idea of, or like masking, right? Like a lot of times students will think of the mask as something that's concealing, but most mask theory, if you get into it, it's actually the most revealing thing. So it's like here, I mean, I have it here, so why not? Um, this is something I
Me
don't use
too.
this. I don't use this in my
Oh,
performance,
yes.
but this is like the famous mime teacher Jacques Lecoq
Mm.
has like the sort of working through the masks, the neutral mask, and then there's like the larval mask, and there's a couple others, some comedian masks. But the final fifth stage is the red nose, and I'm actually in the middle of taking a workshop right now with the Barcelona-based clown Caroline Dream, and she insists on the red nose, which is cool because it gets me out of my comfort zone. But the idea, she also insists that it is with the string because
Mm.
we then know that it's a mask. You don't want the foam one that makes it seem as if it's actual part of you, but that it actually is the thing. Then it's the smallest mask. It's the smallest mask in the world, and by putting it on, it reveals everything about you. And so I think that I I'm like hesitant to do it. I mean, maybe it just shows that there's something in my practice. I mean, maybe it's a good thing, honestly, because it shows there's more to be uncovered
Yes.
in the workshops because I have to do my bits that we're workshopping through with this on. I find that I'm a very different performer than maybe what I am in Joy Buzzer, um,
Oh, wow.
because I feel much more like timid, and a little scared. Like I'm a little scared of this thing,
Oh,
because I
wow.
don't know what I'll discover.
Ooh, that is interesting. I mean, we don't have to go into that, but that is
Yeah.
fascinating. I mean, in that, um, even clowns who are very confident have vulnerabilities that they are figuring out, right? Like that, we are never told that because they become such spectacles of color that it's challenging to see them as individuals who also have this very robust emotional life beyond just the performance.
Well,
Or
very Yeah, they're very sensitive, right? I mean, it's
yeah.
it's very necessary, I think, for any artist, obviously, to be sensitive, which is to say, like the idea of responsive listening. So, like, if you're in a duo or you're working with someone else, or even if not, if you're a solo clown, your other part of that is the audience. You have to be listening to the audience, and that's something that I think I I wonder a lot about poetry with that because if you're just going up to the stage and you read from the book and you're just looking down, you're not listening to anything. You're just sort of you're
Mhm.
just go it's a one-way ticket just out your mouth. And if you're, Joy Buzzer forces me to when I'm performing it in a live audience, I'm the words change. Like, I mean, I don't have the book with me when I perform it. I've basically memorized all of these things close enough. You know, like I of course it's not going to be verbatim what's in this book, but it's like I mean, even reading it early on in the interview, I was sort of like estimating what it says. So
Mm.
that's very different from sort of a paginated poet who's gonna, you know, die on that hill of you switched the article to a instead of the, and that matters, you know, and there's validity to that.
Yeah.
I'm not just like talking trash on that because
Yes.
it's a different format.
You can.
Well, it's just not mine. It's just not
Yeah.
my poetics. I think that there's having a little bit more wiggle room energizes the space, energizes the poem. Um, you
Which
know,
is so fascinating because I think I don't know if the word is white space, but there is so much space to breathe through the text. There is like you don't have to complete, you don't have to like, oh, I need to go through this page and like figure out the metaphor, la la la. You can just let it wash through you and come back to it. And I think a lot of good poetry allows that for that kind of accessibility in that sense that allows for people to accompany it as much as possible, right? In so many ways. And
yeah,
but
I
oh,
think.
go on, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think that that was definitely there's so many challenges of rendering the performance into a book form or manuscript form. But one of the things that was great working with Ashley at Ricochet Editions was kind of talking about how these little poems, these little joy buzzers could be paced on the page.
Mm.
And the Yale clown teacher Christopher Bays has this great, it's a very short chapter, which makes sense given that the chapter title is called The Speed of Fun. And so I think about the speed of fun a lot. And in that
Mm.
chapter, he basically says that if you think about all the times you had fun as a kid, you can't really have fun slowly. Like there's always like a speediness to it. And so I
Mm.
think that the shortness of the line and the one-liner, it keeps you kind of jumping, jumping, jumping. You can just keep going and going and going. And so it tries to, at least in some sort of a mimetic way, echo that speed of fun in a way that also feels fulfilling. Like one of the best compliments I got was my friend Alex read the manuscript before it was published and he said, I read it in one sitting, obviously. It didn't take me long, but it felt like it was long. And he's like,
Mm.
but then I looked up and it was only maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes that it took me max. But it just felt like, you know, this being washed away with information or something, for sort of a neutral term of it. And I thought that was awesome. I was like really, really glad that he felt that because I think that that was a good testament to maybe what this is trying to accomplish.
Amazing. I mean, Henry, I also want to know, we didn't speak about it, but what brought you to poetry? We understand what brought you to clowning so much, which is so amazing and fascinating. But this, after all, is it's a poetry book, and for clowning and poetry to coexist, I think is quite fascinating, and I don't hear of it very, you don't hear about it very often because poets are supposed to be very self-serious and they think about the sadness of the world, which it's not that you don't, it's not
Sure,
that
sure.
you don't, but that, it cannot be ridiculed or it can in many ways, or it has to be a very somber, and I think that
Yeah.
kind of resists that kind of aesthetic of, um, ser-
So totally. I mean, I think to sort of work backwards, that's one thing that, you know, obviously, I mean, you know this, and I'm sure people can tell by now. It's like something that really drives me crazy. I think about something like, I mean, I haven't even seen a recent like Saturday Night Live episode or anything, but the idea of parody,
Mm.
of like kind of poking fun at other contemporary poets is so off limits. I have sort of parody scripts like of like basically like sketch comedy about really famous poets, both dead and living. Um and I would never, at least not yet, until the sort of sensibility maybe shifts or something. I would never release these things to the world. But I'm frustrated with that because why not? Why is it that like, and I'm already really dismissive of like celeb culture. I'm like so uninterested in it, and I think it's not helpful for what the world needs. But if we're able to sort of make fun of a famous actor or a politician or whatever, why
Hmm.
why can't the poet or any poet be big enough to also lampoon and poke fun at? It's not, and I
Hmm.
think it's because it's also a small world. I get that. We all kind of know each other personally. I mean, it's like, it's not hard to get access to these people. A lot of times you could send them an email if you wanted to and be like, "Hi, I like your work. I
Yeah.
just want, and they'll oftentimes I think reach back out. Um, and so there is this sort of more personal relationship to it. But I like the idea of ballooning up the idea of the poet to
Hmm.
where we can make fun of one. It's not, and I'm not necessarily defaulting to that parody is a form of flattery or something. But
Hmm.
I think that a poet or any artist should be able to take it and
Yeah.
not be so self-serious, even if it's as simple as someone saying, "Hi, I'm Henry" to me, or
Yes.
something like that. Like I think it's great. I think it's fun to make fun of. There's something that my partner said to me years ago, and I've always held on to this sort of re-rendering. I'm at my best clown, I think, when I'm like truly myself in my home with my family. I've got two little kids that basically at this point my clown poet career is cut out for me because I'll just steal stuff that they say and just call it a poem, and it's like it's brilliant. Um,
Brilliant.
but I will do foolish things, and Olivia will laugh at me, and I'll sort of put on a frowny face, like you can't, don't laugh at me like that. You're
And
laughing
Olivia
at
is your
my partner,
yeah,
Olivia, my
yeah,
wife,
yes, yes.
and I'll say you're laughing at me, and she said, I'll never forget this. I think about this so frequently. I'm laughing with you if you'd only laugh too. And I think that
Mm.
it's sort of like that sort of semantic shift is something that I think I'm always laughing with everyone. I think that certain clowns can be cruel, and I am interested in like Artaud's theater of cruelty. In
Yeah.
my early experiments, I was actually testing kind of shifting that laser beam of cruelty back on the audience,
Mm-hmm.
which was more to just kind of see what would happen, and I was very ill received. It's not, it was like, hey, who are you to say this shit? That the one that I really remember, like the people were borderline like straight up scowling at me when I said it's a visual one in here. Oh, it's right here actually. It's this visual one.
Oh,
It's a
nice.
child's honesty. So hi, I'm Henry, and so it was an outdoor venue, and I got down on my knees to act like I'm a child. So it's a child's honesty, and I like sort of crawled up to this group of people, and I put on like a baby voice. And I'm like, I'm Henry, and they're like, I'm a child's honesty. They already were not having the show. They're like, I'm child's honesty, and then it's just like, you ugly, you dumb, you godless and without hope. And it's like, I mean, it's the childish voice was supposed to sort of create a padding of non-seriousness, but those words hurt, I mean, that
Mm.
especially from a child, when a kid calls somebody ugly,
You are ugly.
there's like some serious truth to it because they don't hold back. They're
They
in the world as like
don't.
it's the
Oh my God.
worst thing.
Kids are devils. That's what they are.
That's exactly
They are
right.
truly devils. And I have been really, they would say the most ridiculous things, and you cannot react to them. You have to be like, oh, is it?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I mean, that is, like, it's so interesting we bring kids into this because clowns are so often for kids in a sense, right? Like the sensibility of a clown is like for the birthday party or for the
Sure.
entertainment of the child. But like as we as we're revealing that there's so much more to it, and also so much more to the image of the child in terms of the kind of knowledge it provides to the world, this kind of
Absolutely.
fairness. And it's so
And unconditioned. I think that there's a friendly acquaintance of mine that I met when I was doing the tour in Detroit, Tiana Gordon, who also studies clown, but is an anthropologist by trade. They said that they were taking a clown class, and their clown teacher, who I cannot remember the name of, talked about clowning is a denazification of the body. And so I
mm,
think that kids are not so socialized yet. They sit down at a table, they're not going to sit still for a meal. They want to go jump up, they want to go dance. And so there's this. I think it's important to make the distinction that a clown is not a child, um,
Mm,
but a clown can be childlike. And so,
mm,
even
mm.
thinking just like last night, reading our bedtime stories to my 4-year-old, he was like just just the way that he moves his body. He just kind of like was listening, sort of, but then just started bucking on the bed and just sort of like wild, like kicking his legs out and doing all this crazy stuff. It's like, well, why don't we do that more often? I mean, of course, I understand the practical reasons of that, but when you're able to sort of start studying clown, which is, it's also weird to be a clown poet because, a lot of people think of poetry as language. Myself, not personally, that's not the first thing I think of when I think of poetry. But when you're able to start moving your body or modulating your voice a little bit more than you want to, or that you're used to, there's so much more that we're not doing. I mean, this could go back to I mean, it kind of goes back to the idea of like the Futurist Manifesto, The Art of Noise, where they had the radical idea that, music is only within this very certain substrata of sounds. But instead, they're like, blow that shit up. It could be anything. It could be a trash can getting banged, all this stuff. I think the same thing with clown applies to both the voice and the body, of like being able to move yourself in the space, not just sort of stand there, self-serious still, but really challenge these parameters. And the more that we start expanding about it, I think the more that, I mean, maybe it's a stretch or something like that, but that it can start activating a change in the world where it's like we don't have to just be sitting here. We don't have to just sort of take it. We don't have to be sort of obeying in advance, if you will, or something. And so clowns are all about that sort of transgressive flipping of the switch. And every clown bit is actually sort of like a little miniature act of revolution.
It'll be, I mean, this is so horrible for me to say this, but instead of yoga classes, I think we should go to clowning classes now.
Totally,
Eh,
totally.
we should take a chai, matcha latte, whatever, and then go
Yeah.
to these clowning classes because the yoga classes are not working.
I think that
Um,
that was something that really blew my mind open when I first started taking clown classes. I was like, I'm learning more about poetry than I ever have in a
mm,
poetry class. Like, or maybe in a poetry workshop, I mean, when it's more creative oriented, because it's so easy once you see it and unlock it, all the parallels to clowning. I'm like, oh, this is just a metaphor for poetry. This is just a metaphor for poetry in all these hundreds of different ways.
wow.
Um, and so it's like I mean, I do still get a kick out of taking poetry classes sometimes, but if I had my pick of one or the other, it's going to be a clown class every time, and I'll be a better poet for it, honestly.
Amazing. Just, there's so much amazing stuff that, I was so engaged in, like, this is amazing, Henry. Like, you're such a charismatic, I mean, I'm sure the clown in you kind of came out and maybe that's what it was, but it was so interesting to hear how engrossed and invested and amazing this kind of area is that is also very often misunderstood in many ways. Like clowning is not the most accepted, like a parent would always ridicule you as a, what do you want to be, a clown, like it's
Right, right.
yeah, so and it's so fascinating that I find it very fascinating. That's one of my interests, that things that are kind of ridiculous, stupid, or like something that's humiliating at one time become something that redeems us at another time. And I think that's so fascinating to me. And so this was so amazing to hear all of this insight from you, which is like amazing. And obviously, I would recommend everybody to get Joy Buzzer, but from obviously our website. And before obviously wrapping things up, I do want to hear about, like, are you working on something new? What are your poetic, directions at this point of time? How do you feel post production of this book? Yes.
Yeah, so there's a couple things going. The nice thing about, maybe it's just the clown mentality, is like I don't, I guess whatever the term would be, like prolific or something, but that sounds so I don't know, aggrandizing. I think that but as a clown you just want to keep kind of going and producing. The term producing clown means a clown that makes their own props, and so I always want to just keep working and just keep my practice afloat. And the ideas keep coming, luckily, if you sort of think that way. So the two main ones that I have are, I have a manuscript, you can totally see there's not a theme here. The manuscript Balloon Animal, which is sort of like in a sequence of it's coming after Joy Buzzer. It just got picked up.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. And so it's a little bit, there's a few longer ones in Joy Buzzer. This is sort of like a little bit longer scripts, anywhere from like 1 to maybe like 4 pages long. Sort of in, I mean, you could relate it to Poets Theater. I would actually relate it more to one of my touchstones is the Russian absurdist from the early 20th century, Daniel Harms. Um, Harms spelled with a K, but it is definitely indebted to his absurdist work. But it's also definitely sort of in the vein of like Tina Dara's agitprop poetry, these sort of scripts that are sort of have like certainly like a Marxist kind of bent to them. Not too on the nose. Some of them kind of taper off, but I'm really excited about that manuscript coming out. And then the other one I've been working on is a longer poem that I kind of started thinking about. It's just for the page. Like Balloon Animal is definitely for performance. I'm a little nervous about it because I realized that in order to really do that, I need to start figuring out how to produce things, as in like outsource like actors and things like that. Like it's almost like I want to take a seat back and just like direct these performances or something. But this other one is called Spill Life with Hammerspace.
Hmm.
And I've talked about this elsewhere. Maybe we've talked in the past about it, but Hammerspace is the cartoonist concept of like this extra dimensional space behind a cartoon character's back where they can pull out a piano, a sledgehammer,
Wow.
whatever. And so they can create anything. And so I'm riffing off of, I also really enjoy art. And so I was sort of doing a deep dive. I don't know why I was doing this.
Why do you do a
I got
deep
really
dive?
invested. I got really invested in the genre of painting of still lifes. And
Yes.
so then I started thinking of still life is just like kind of a stupid pun. And then,
Mm,
but implementing still life slash spill life with this notion of hammer space. So
mhm.
it's this, there's these brief sort of, it's a sequence poem with numbers. I think it's up to like 101 right now. But I don't think it's its own book. I think it would go in with something else. But it's also like trying to see again, like, can I apply clown poetics? I think is very outward, wants to perform, but I think it's also very capable of performing on the page itself. And so I want to
Mm.
kind of test myself with that constraint and see if I got that in me. And I mean, I think I do. It's going well. So those are the two main projects: the Balloon Animal, which actually seems kind of like fast tracked. It might be out early next year.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and
Amazing.
then Still Life with Hammerspace is just kind of coming out in bits and pieces with different magazines and stuff.
You know, a successful clown, we need that. We need.
I hope so. If there's a
We
demand, I'll fill
do,
it, I
we
guess,
do, we do.
but yeah, it's really been a good year. I think clown, I'm kind of lucking out, I think. I think that clown in general is having a moment. In not just within poetry, but like in there's wonderful scenes in New York, in Philly, in LA. There's sort of the clown's getting a little bit more respect on the label in the past 5, 10 years. So I think it's very cool to see, and like I think that everyone has a clown in them, and I think that I hope to maybe convince someone to explore it and bring it out a little more.
Amazing, Henry. This was so amazing. I've learned so much from you. I want to try clowning out. I think I'll definitely cry. I think in the first few sessions.
That's good.
But
That's good.
this is so amazing. I'm so excited to hear there are other projects that you are extending yourself into, and rightly so because there's so much. You know, as I was going through the interview, I was thinking that there's so much that one interview cannot unpack, and there needs to be like 1 week of just sitting with you and pulling out your hair and asking questions about what does this mean, what does that mean, what does this mean. And I think that's just speaks to how rich this world is, and how rich this kind of your project, the long-term project, if that is, of
Totally.
thinking about clowning and poetics is. But this was amazing. And obviously, if you have any links and around your reading and stuff, we'll just put it
Sure.
up on the description. But this was amazing. Thank you so
Yeah, I think that it is something, if anyone watched all the way through, it is like in the clown Alex Tatarsky talks about this. They talk about how it's a little hazy, but clown etymologically comes from clod, like dirt. So like clown is of the earth. And so speaking of like rich, like which is to say fertile ground, I think it's something that really, no matter what kind of poet you are, you can grow whatever you want in this dirt. And so it's like you don't have to like there's so many different styles of clowning
Mm.
in poetry that like whatever your mode is or your preferred form, whatever, elegiac or villanelle or whatever, you can put it in the clown dirt and something really amazing will happen. So I hope more people, test it out, see what they think.
Amazing. This should have been the beginning, but this is so amazing. Thank you so much, Henry. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank you for
much,
having me.
Henry.
It's awesome.
Yes, of course.